Are we on? Okay. We are apparently live. I'll just try and get my own TikTok up here so I can see any comments coming in. Welcome to our, I think we can say weekly again, because we have managed to do it weekly for the last while. Weekly live engagement with people on a range of social media platforms. Please like and share and comment and all that good stuff. This is where we go through some of the key events politically of the week and answer, or attempt anyway, to answer any questions that you have. Just trying to get it so I can see questions here. There we go. And then don't want to see my own face. Excellent. Hello, people who are joining now. I don't have loads of time because I have another meeting and it took us a while to get this new setup started. I hope my voice sounds lovely with this nice microphone. You might comment in the chat if it does, or tell me if it doesn't as well. So it took us a little bit longer to get it set up, but hopefully we will have this improved setup, improved audio quality from now on, and can also have some longer engagements. I tell you, there's two things I'll start off with and then answer people's questions. One, and this is a world exclusive, a letter from none other than Commissioner Harris, Drew Harris, the head of An Garda Síochána, a letter that was sent to Verona Murphy on the 16th of May and was circulated last night to the business committee. A very peculiar letter, a letter that is giving out about me and Richard Boyd Barrett and Ruth Coppinger, and the fact that we spoke out in the Dáil about the fact that various protesters, activists involved in Mothers Against Genocide, so mothers protesting from Mother's Day against the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza, how they were treated by the Gardaí. They were forcibly removed from the gates of the Dáil, and then some of them were strip searched, a number of them were strip searched, and one of them was cavity searched. And we spoke out about this in the Dáil, condemning it, quoting their testimony of what they said happened to them. And so this was then, you may have seen headlines saying that Minister for Justice says footage confirms no such strip searches and cavity searches took place. And the media, or large parts of the media, trumpeted the idea that this was nonsense. We were abusing Dáil privilege by talking about this. But this letter is very, very interesting. Because while it's giving out about us saying this, one, the letter does not actually deny, the letter doesn't deny that the Gardaí were involved in strip searching or even cavity searching. It simply says, it's been verified by me, I'm quoting, that they treated those, they being the Gardaí, they treated those in custody with respect at all times and ensured the safety of all individuals. It goes on. The searches conducted on the 31st of March 2025 were in full compliance with the Criminal Justice Act 1984 and the treatment of persons in custody regulations. The Gardaí acted at all times professionally, lawfully, and with respect for the rights of those in custody. They're just saying any searches that took place within the law. They're not saying there weren't strip searches or even cavity searches. The other thing that is very, very interesting, right, is that you had these headlines. The Journal in particular had a headline. A number of articles had headlines. Newspaper outlets, media outlets had headlines saying Justice Minister says footage proves these strip searches did not take place. However, check this out. I'll read out two paragraphs, right? I'll try and go slow enough so you can register it. The protests and subsequent arrests were recorded on Garda body-worn cameras. So that's the actual protests and the arrests were recorded. Fine. There are also recordings available from the respective Garda stations' custody areas, which contain audio and visual recordings. These recordings show nothing that would substantiate any allegations of wrongdoing. Fine. But the next paragraph. There are no recording devices in cells when prisoners are being searched for obvious requirements for dignity and privacy. I'll read it again. There are no recording devices in cells when prisoners are being searched for obvious requirements for dignity and privacy. So he's admitting there is no footage of any searches. There's no proof of video footage to say that the strip searches didn't take place. So why on earth was the Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, preempting any independent investigation and saying video footage proved that it didn't happen? There is no video footage to prove that it didn't happen. We knew that at the time because that's precisely what the regulations say in terms of what is to be recorded and so on. So it's crazy. The Gardaí were clearly spinning a line. They investigated themselves, said there's nothing to see here, and then we're spinning a line to journalists and to the Minister for Justice saying, oh, we've checked the footage, and then not telling people that actually we don't have footage of the searches. So we can't, the footage doesn't say whether it's a strip search or not. It's absolutely crazy. So we're now demanding that the Minister for Justice makes a statement to say, how on earth did he come to the conclusion that he came for? Why did he preempt the independent process? Absolutely nuts. Questions: what are your views on a wealth tax for Ireland? In favour of it. Been calling for a millionaire's tax for a long time. What about Terence Wheelock? We've been calling for an independent investigation into the death of Terence Wheelock in Garda custody for very many years now. There is a protest. I'm fairly certain it's on the 14th of June. You might, or it could be the 7th of June. It's coming up. If you search out Terence Wheelock, Justice for Terence Wheelock, find out about it, and I'll see you on the protest there. The other thing I was going to say, hi Barry. Barry says I have 18 people watching me. I can't actually see on the screen now how many people have watching me, but I suspect it's a lot more. 42, and it'll only go up. That's what happens during these things. More people tune in. But Barry, if you don't want to watch, you can turn it off, and then you're one less person. 44, thank you, Wakul. And generally we get up to the kind of 150 mark or so, and then a whole bunch of people watch it again later. The other thing I want to talk about, very interesting, was published finally last night, is the Defence Amendment Bill 2025 General Scheme. These are what's known as a heads of bill. Kind of sets out what a bill is, what a law is going to do. And this is the bill to get rid of the triple lock. And it's worth reading. Again, if you just do a Google for it, Defence Amendment Bill 2025, you'll be able to find it online, and you'll be able to confirm all the different bits that I'm going to say about it. One very interesting thing is that the government has said repeatedly that they're going to reform the triple lock. So let me find the Fianna Fáil election manifesto now. And they're the one. Fine Gael didn't say anything about changing the triple lock or anything like that, right? Fianna Fáil went further. Fine Gael just spoke about protecting our active neutrality and this kind of thing. Fianna Fáil did speak about it. They spoke about continuing, this is their manifesto, continue to protect and promote Ireland's military neutrality, including sensible reform of the triple lock legislation. However, this is not reform, sensible or otherwise, of the triple lock legislation. It's getting rid of the triple lock. So the first page of the overview of the general scheme clearly states that, quote, the bill will provide for the removal of the existing requirement regarding the triple lock in relation to the dispatch of the Defence Forces for services outside the state as part of an international force. This is not reform, sensible or otherwise. It is abolition of the triple lock, getting rid of what Micheál Martin previously said is at the core of our neutrality. What the new law would mean, and they need to get it through, and we need to stop them. And there's a big protest on the 14th of June, 2 o'clock, Garden of Remembrance, big coalition together for neutrality, coming together to say, save our neutrality, keep the triple lock. But what the law would say if passed is that more than 50 Irish troops can be sent abroad as part of an international force, established, led, organised or supported by any regional arrangement or body that operates in a manner consistent with UN Charter and international law, as long as a majority of the Dáil, i.e. currently Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Lowry lackeys, vote for it. This opens the door, as we said it would, to Irish troops being sent abroad as part of NATO missions in the Middle East or elsewhere, or even as part of so-called coalitions of the willing, as long as they're portrayed as a regional force. And that's easy, they just say it's a regional arrangement. There's no one other than the government to determine whether it's consistent with the UN Charter and international law, because you're removing UN approval. The requirement for the triple lock, which is precisely, the triple lock guarantees it's in line with UN law, because only things agreed by the UN, either the Security Council or the General Assembly, you can send troops on. This gets rid of that. Another interesting thing is, once the Dáil has voted once to send troops abroad as part of a particular international force, it cannot be overruled by a subsequent vote of the Dáil. So even if the Dáil changes its mind or there's a different composition of the Dáil, as long as the government says we keep going with this, they can do that. They head 6 of the heads of bill states that any dispatch has to be in line with particular international force will operate for the purposes of peacekeeping, conflict prevention, and strengthening international security consistent with the principles of the UN Charter. So the reference to the principles of the UN Charter is very, very important there. It's broad, vague principles in Article 2 of the UN Charter, rather than the actual rules set out in the UN Charter about when can forces be deployed. And it also means that an international force that is not even presented as a peacekeeping force, but one that is solely aimed at strengthening international security from the perspective of whatever regional arrangement, troops can be sent on that. And up to 50 troops, rather than 12 currently, 12 currently, under this, up to 50 troops can be sent on any military mission without any Dáil oversight whatsoever. There's not even a need for a vote of the Dáil. So this is what we've been saying about. This is an attempt to completely get rid of our neutrality, and we need to stop it. They have a majority in the Dáil, fine, but we have a majority of public opinion, and we have to mobilise that public opinion on the streets to say stop it. So that's why we had a very powerful meeting 3 weeks ago now at this stage in the Gresham Hotel, and we've called a protest together, broad coalition of forces involving all the left political parties, the trade unions, the anti-war groups, the Irish Neutrality League, the Save the Triple Lock campaign, all coming together under the banner of Together for Neutrality to call for a protest on the 14th of June. Have a look through some of the chats here. Question: do you think there's any chance of voting at 16 thing happening before presidential election? I think it's a long shot. I definitely support it, of course. What was interesting was that Micheál Martin kind of left the door open to it, and then Simon Harris tried to close the door. Simon Harris is the one who gave a commitment to National Youth Council before the election that he supported it, but clearly, they don't want people at 16 and 17 to vote because they don't trust that they'll vote for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. So I think the government will find a way to block it. I was talking to the fella from the Social Democrats, Aidan Farrelly, who introduced it, and they're thinking about doing it for private members' time at what's called second stage, so kind of introduced as a real. It was kind of introduced as first stage this week, so they might do it soon, and then we'll see how the government votes on it. Will the government enact the Occupied Territories Bill this year? Is there any chance? There is some chance. All depends on how much pressure they're under. At the moment, I think what they're gearing up to do is to dilute it massively by carving out services, which make up a majority of our trade with the occupied territories. So this is a bill, people presumably, some people will know, to say we won't trade with illegally occupied Palestinian territory, so illegally occupied by Israeli settlers. We won't trade with them. It's a bill that the government promised to support in advance of the election, and then after the election began to backtrack. They kind of forward-tracked a tiny bit this week, saying, we're going to bring a memo to Cabinet about it. Simon Harris did, because they're under so much pressure because of famine that's taking place, like the forced famine, starvation of children in Gaza. But I think they're going to try and weaken it down significantly. There's no legal basis for what they're doing. There really isn't, and we know that from the Attorney General advice that was published on the Ditch. But, we'll see. Grip, the only real journalist in Ireland. Pray hands. PvP can't hope with truth. Hi, Santa. No, I'd say the real journalists in Ireland are the Ditch. They do real investigative journalism, and there are other journalists who do real investigative journalism. You won't find the Grip doing any real investigative journalism. You should check, actually. Will they do a story on Ken O'Flynn? You might have seen Ken O'Flynn writing to the Dáil looking for a lazy boy recliner. Goes for over €1,000. He was also given out about his office not matching the kind of standard of his position. And a very good journalist called Ken Fox exposed this. Wait and see if the Gript reports on that, because they've done a series of puff pieces about Ken O'Flynn because he signs them into the Dáil. They're a propaganda arm for right-wing politics in this country. Happy birthday, Callum. APAC says, answer my question. I could be left on many issues, but I'm very conservative on asylum seekers. Why is a person who has a strict view on Ireland's asylum rules considered far right? I mean, I don't think just having a strict rule on Ireland's asylum rules makes you far right. It's a part of a composition of views that a far right person would have, but all by itself it doesn't. I think it makes you wrong. The reason I think it makes you wrong is that I think as long as you're not wealthy, it makes you wrong, because it's a trick used by those who benefit from the housing crisis, from the health crisis, all the people who profit from these crises, be it private hospitals, private health insurers, the landlords, the developers, the property developers. They all want ordinary working class people to be divided and be thinking the reason we have these crises is because of these asylum seekers coming in. We can't cope, blah, blah, blah. It's a trick. So I think you're wrong. Whether you're far right or not, I don't know. And you're saying you've left-wing views on other things. So Yasser Arafat loving TDs. What are the chances of triple lock being passed? Any book recommendations? Wow. I mean, you have to say at the moment they have more. It's more than 50% chance they'll succeed in getting rid of the triple lock. We haven't mobilised enough people yet to stop them. But history is yet to be made. That's up to you. That's up to me. That's up to everybody who is watching. Let's see how many we're up to now. 52 people. It's up to us. If we could each speak to 5 people, then that's 250 people. And then all the people on Facebook and Instagram and so on. It's getting the word out about what's happening. Neutrality is at stake. People want neutrality. The public opinion polls are very, very clear on that. We need to mobilise people to stop it. Any book recommendations? Yeah. What did I read recently? Mike Davis. What's it called? Mike Davis. I feel the word gods is in it. Yes, Mike Davis. Old Gods, New Enigmas. Strongly recommended. Yeah. Sorry, where's me chat gone? There we are. Options on John McGurk. I presume that's opinions. I mean, he's a classic establishment figure, isn't he? Who then has gone very conservative. He was in Fianna Fáil. He was in Fine Gael. He then was the mastermind of the utterly failed anti-choice campaign. I think he said he would retire and never do anything in politics again if he was wrong about the result of the Dublin Central constituency. I think if it was more than 75% yes vote, and it was more than 75% yes vote, I could be off on the figures, but he made a prediction that was completely wrong, and then has continued, and now he's, the man running Gript and doing a job for the establishment in trying to get ordinary people to blame vulnerable people, LGBTQ people, asylum seekers, migrants, whatever. He wrongly, on RTE television, blamed IRIGI for the death of Lyra McKee and was forced to pay a bunch of money. He then is currently being sued for wrongly identifying someone wrongly who was not the person responsible for the stabbing on Parnell Street. So yeah, how did you become knowledgeable in left-wing ideas, books you read? It's a mixture of reading and thinking and talking and collective discussion with people and then doing things. You got to do both. Yeah. Thanks, Rory. Marty Clown, Grip got your tongue. What question do you have, Marty? I'll answer your question directly. You don't need to just shill for Grip, okay? Why don't you cooperate with Independent Ireland and aim to on neutrality issue? I mean, we have no problem cooperating. We'll vote the same way in that all, presumably. I hope that they will oppose it. I prefer that Padder Tobin give a good speech in defence of the triple lock. But there is a fundamental difference in terms of our general view about militarism. For us, we're opposed to war and militarism and imperialism. We're opposed to the massive increase in expenditure by the defence forces in Ireland, apart from money that's spent on improving terms and conditions for ordinary workers, because it's part of a drive to militarise, prepare to join NATO later, and we see that context. And many of those who might be defence of the triple lock don't necessarily agree on that. Santa XXX, soon, very soon, you and Coppinger gone. I'd love to go through. If I knew your profile, you probably said the same thing before the last election. Loads of people said we were going to lose our seats, or I was going to lose my seat. Sure, Ruth Coppinger got re-elected, and I got re-elected. So she got back in, and I got elected again. We'll see. Who knows? Next elections, unfortunately, are a long time away. If I could vote for an election tomorrow, I would do it. Yes, PPP have a different stance. You can read our PPP pamphlet, where effectively what I would argue for is a one-state socialist solution. What's your opinion on the cafe in Sallynoggin earning billions? I don't know. This is the first you're telling me about a cafe in Sallynoggin earning billions. I'm going to have to go in a few minutes. APAC, who was saying mostly has left-wing views, except for asylum seekers, is saying, don't you think you focus too much on Palestine? It's completely ineffective. I think, we don't focus on Palestine. I think I gave 10 speeches this week. One speech was about Palestine, right? So just to be clear that's not like what we're focused on. But I think, Jesus, like anyone, no matter whether you're a TD or just a person watching the stream, if you know what's happening in Gaza, if you know babies are being starved to death, and you don't do everything you can to do whatever you can to add weight onto the scales to try and stop it, Jesus, you're not acting with any humanity. I don't. Yeah. Thoughts on Irish delegates, diplomats being shot at by IDF soldiers? Horrendous. Like in a sense, not surprising. Without minimising what it did, but they just breach any kind of rules of engagement and so on. Just 2 weeks ago, they attacked with a drone a humanitarian ship with aid in international waters near Malta. Crazy. I'll finish on these ones because then I got to run. Biggest thing government's doing wrong at the moment. The biggest thing they're doing right. Biggest thing government is doing wrong is their approach to the housing crisis. They're just going to double down on policies that have already failed. They're going more and more in the direction of the private market. They're going to try and weaken already very weak protection for renters so that rents will rise, so that they can invite in and attract in vulture funds. During the week, Micheál Martin was defending vulture funds, saying these institutional investors are very important. It's absolute madness. Because the real purpose of the policy is to get the corporate landlords rich and the private developers rich. That's the purpose of the policy. It's working how it's designed. And they just pretend they're trying to resolve the housing crisis. So that's absolutely horrendous. What's the biggest thing they're doing right? Jesus. Hard to think of anything. Some of their words on Palestine, saying what's happening, war crimes and so on, that's good. But, if only it was matched by some actual action, APAC, no, unfortunately the Irish government, or not unfortunately, but it's just not true that the Irish government focuses more on Gaza than our own issues domestically. I have no idea how you're getting that idea. Someone said rather focus on my own country. I'm capable of focusing on more than one thing at once and worrying about more than one thing at once. And actually, I think you expand your capacity for solidarity by caring about people and babies in Palestine being starved to death. And learning about what's happening in Palestine, trying to act for Palestine, actually strengthens me in terms of fighting for fundamental socialist change here. Worry about your own, be more like it. Yeah, my own is ordinary people. I don't discriminate. Anyway, I better go because I got a meeting that it was meant to be at 4:30 and I put it back 10 minutes. Good to talk to you all. Thanks for the engagement, even if we disagree. And I'll be back probably same-ish time next week. We try and make it a regular kind of time. So anyone who wants can hop on and engage. So that's it. Thanks very much. Take care. Have a nice rest of your day.